Hello and welcome back to another FTC 18715 Artemis programming tutorial. And today we're going to be showing you guys on how to code your motors. So let's get started, shall we? Okay, so the very first thing I want to show you guys how to do is plug in. So let me just move this down and let's go back to the camera. So we're going to take this motor here, and in a previous video I showed you how to configure your robot. So all you have to do really is plug and make sure, so you can see this little clip right here. This one will always face outwards and connect with this outside clip. And now that we have our motor connected, it has power. So let's start and code the motor. So if we go all the way over to our motor, let's get started. So I made a variable just called DC motor, and you'll import a class with it. So now let's get into our initialization. So what we have to do with our motors are initialize them so our robot actually knows what is connected to the control hub. To do this, we're going to write some code. So the variable name is motor and the type of it is DC motor. So we're going to take that variable and give it some input. So we're going to use hardware map dot get DC motor dot class. And now a very important step is that you have to understand what you have to kind of remember what exactly you programmed your thing to be as. So let me show you guys where you can find this information, because this is very valuable information, and if this is done wrong, then it will not work. So let's go to here. Hold on 1 second. Okay, so we're back to our tutorial, and if you go to configure robot here, edit, control hub, motors. So this name right here where it says motor, this is very important, and if you don't remember that, then the code will give you a massive error. So make sure you guys remember exactly what you named it. So now we're going to go back here, and what we're going to type here is we're going to type motor, because that's exactly what we named it. And don't forget your semicolon. So then now once we've done that, we've pretty much done the hard part. So all we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this. So let's just type some quick thing to let us know that our hardware has been initialized. So let's go under here and type telemetry.add data. Let's just do hardware and then initialized semicolon. So now what I want to do in this loop is actually have control over the motor. So if I were to do, so the syntax of this is just calling motor.setPower and then like giving it a value from -1 to 1. So -1 would be the fastest that motor could possibly run, and then 1 would be also the fastest. It's just different directions. So I don't want to have to, because the thing is, if I put this command here, then the moment I click that start button, this motor is going to run. So I want to actually have control over this. So I'm going to take this line of code and I'll put it in this code. So this is an if statement, so I'm just going to give this 0.5 power, so I'm not going to go too crazy. So this if statement is basically just saying, so here, let me show you guys. So this is what it means by gamepad 1. So these Logitech controllers come with your kit, and gamepad 1 is basically you're able to plug in a total of 2 gamepads, so or 2 controllers. So gamepad 1 is really up to you which controller you want it to be, but if you use one of these expansion hubs where you're able to plug in multiple controllers, you should be you just have to decide which one you want. So basically what I'm saying, or basically what I'm asking the code to do, is when I click this green button, which is A, I'm going to turn on this motor and give it power. So let's run the code and see if this works. Okay, so the code is finished running. So if we go to our tutorial initiate. And now here's the thing. I'm gonna have to switch to this. I won't be able to show you the screen recording because then I won't be able to plug in the controller. So I basically just plugged in the controller through here, and you'll know that your controller is plugged in properly because if you see this little gamepad plugged in and it says user 1, then you know you plugged into the right one. And that's also how you tell which gamepad 1. So gamepad 1 is basically user 1, and then gamepad 2 is user 2. So now if we set, and our telemetry works because it says hardware and then it says initialize. So let's click the play button. So when I click this A button, the motor should spin. And I don't know if you can hear it, but it's definitely spinning. And now, here's the problem. I let go of the A button, but it's still spinning. Why is that? Well, I'll show you why. So let's quickly just stop this, and let's go back to our code. So in our code, it only states to give it power, but we never stated to stop it. How do we stop it? Well, outside the if statement, we're gonna put motor.setPower and set the power to 0. So what this is in the loop, anytime we click the A button, the motor will spin. However, the moment we stop clicking the A button, since it's in a loop, it will turn off the power with this line right here. Okay, so our code is finished running, so let's go into our tutorial or op mode, and let's see what happens. So if I click this A button, it spins, and the moment I release, it stops spinning. So let's see if you can hear it. So now let's try this again. Let's see. And as you can see, the motor is spinning when I hold A, and the moment I release, the motor will stop. So now we have full control over this motor. But now let's say I wanted to, drive my robot. You'd most likely use the joystick. So all we have to do is change the gamepad 1. Let me show you. So if we're changing this if statement, we just change it to, let's say, gamepad 1 dot left stick, right? Left stick X. So what left stick X basically means is, if we think about it as an axis, X would be the horizontal axis and Y would be the vertical axis. So the reason why this is giving us an error is because this is no longer a Boolean. Because what a Boolean is if it's true or if it's false. So when we click gamepad A, it is obviously a Boolean because there's no numerical value when you do this. It's just whether you click it or whether you don't. It's a button. However, this joystick is completely different because you can move it slightly to the left, slightly to the right. There are numerical values that actually come out of this joystick, whether it be like -1 to 1 or -0.5 to 5, because you can move it ever so slightly to give it a different number. So we're actually going to have to change this code a lot more. So the problem with this is it'll give us more control. However, we're going to have to code more on it, which is completely fine because when we're doing our drivetrain, we should be able to drive our robot using the joystick. So let's quickly code something that'll work. So let's do this. We're going to set a variable called, let's do X. X equals gamepad1 dot left stick and X. Okay, and then we have to turn this into a float. Okay, so now we have this, right? So if we scroll down here, we're gonna do if gamepad1 is greater than 0, then we're gonna plug X into here. Oh, sorry. Let's just take this and plug this into here. There we go. Okay, so I'm just gonna write that there. Okay, so now we have power going into our motor. Okay, so the code has finished, and let's see if this works. So in theory, what should happen is if I move this joystick this way, then it will move the motor. But let's start off by barely moving it and see if the motor moves. Oh. See that? and then if I fully start to accelerate, and you'll see how much control we will have over this motor just by moving the joystick. Because unlike the button A, it'll only set it to a constant value of power. However, we have a lot more control over the motor now by setting it to the joystick. And I'm going to put an image for your drivetrain. So basically this image is describing how much or what power you should give your motors to move that certain direction. And if you are lost on how to code your drivetrain, and your drivetrain is basically your 4 motors that will maneuver your robot, then I'm going to be leaving a GitHub in the description below. This GitHub will have basically my whole project from A to Z, and it will be showing you all the steps you need to code your drivetrain. So if you want to know how to code your drivetrain, go into the GitHub in the description below and utilize some of my code, and it should help you a lot through your journey. And I just want you guys to really understand the basics in these videos, and the more complex coding will be in that GitHub in the description below. So in this video, you learned how to control your motors. And in the next video, we're going to be using encoders, which basically help you control your motors very precisely. Until next time, peace.